Howdy, my name is Diego Castillo, and my partner is Eric Aguilar, and this is Project 6 Immunological Tolerance, Autoimmunity, and Hypersensitivity. So, how does the immune system maintain unresponsiveness to self antigens? The main thing involved in unresponsiveness in the immune system is tolerance, more specifically, central tolerance and peripheral tolerance. Central tolerance happens in the bone marrow and thymus. They will undergo negative selection to see if the antigens aren't too self reactive. They will mature and enter the bloodstream, allowing for the body to combat infections without the worry of an overreaction of their self-antigens. This occurs with somatic recombination, creating diversity of T cell receptors. Then, presentation of their own cells, and if they bind too strongly, they will receive apoptotic signals. And apoptosis is when a signal will be sent to a cell to undergo cell death. It is also important to remember air, which plays an important role in negative selection. It will express a variety of self-antigens so that T cells can interact with them. Peripheral tolerance occurs in other tissues and the lymph nodes. If self-reactive cells survive through negative selection, they will either be deleted, suppressed by regulatory T cells, or rendered inactive through the process called anergy. And anergy is a state of immune cell inactivity. When a T or B cell interacts with an antigen but doesn't receive a secondary signal for the activation of them, it is rendered anergic, which is alive but unresponsive. T regulatory cells will prevent the immune responses targeting self-antigens.
Next, let's talk about factors that may contribute to the loss of self-tolerance and the development of autoimmunity. Some factors that may attribute to a person's loss of self-tolerance include when APCs present self-antigens to specific T cells and lymphoid organs. This usually these are rendered inactive or destroyed, but in this case they are activated and end up and can recognize these self antigens. We also have cancerous antigens that may cross react with self antigens, utilizing their ability to mimic this, our own self antigens, causing them to be targeted by our immune system. Finally, we can also experience a loss of self tolerance through the activity of unregulated lymphocyte cells. Now we'll be going over the mechanisms of different types of hypersensitivity reactions. For this slide, we will cover type 1 and type 2. For type 1 hypersensitivity, this type is known as the immediate response, in which is often triggered by an allergen and is mediated by IgE antibodies. This type of hypersensitivity is also known as the mast cell mediated reaction, which works through the activation of Th2 cells and the production of those IgE antibodies. This often leads to the release of inflammatory mediators. For type 2, antibodies other than IgE may cause diseases by binding to their target antigens in surface cells, no, surface antigens on cells and tissues. This works by tagging those antigens with antibodies IgG, or IgM. They are then recognized by either natural killer cells or macrophages that in turn target and kill these surface antigens. This may lead to tissue or organ damage. Now, finally, we have type 3 hypersensitivity and type 4. In type 3 hypersensitivity, antibodies form in immune complexes that deposit into blood vessels, and they are often known to bind to free flowing antigens. This pathway causes damage to the tissue through the actions of anaflotoxin C3A and C5A, in which they are mediators to the onset of inflammatory responses. Some, some common diseases related to type 3 hypersensitivity is serum sickness and Arthus reactions. For type 4, this involves T cell antigen interactions that cause the activation of cytokine secretion. It is often, to go into more depth, it's often the reactions to foreign antigens that are similar to the host cells and can take several hours to process, often between 24 to 48 hours. These cytokines can often cause leakages from the blood vessels that allow blood and macrophages to escape. Common types of conditions for type 4 hypersensitivity include contact dermatitis and poison ivy. Finally, we have type 3.
That was our presentation. Thank you for watching.